Susan Wojcicki and Sundar Pichai, you're the bosses, respectively, of YouTube and Google. Google owns YouTube, of course. I've sent you a letter on behalf of the Children's Union today. It's in the post. But I thought it appropriate to speak to you on this channel, your own channel, and to read it out. So here goes. The Children's Union has red-carded YouTube today, and our team has reviewed your recent activity, and unfortunately, we think it places children in danger. We've put YouTube and its parent company, Google, on the Children's Union Company Red List. We know this might be disappointing, but it's important to us that the world is a safe place for children, as safe as it can be. If a company's actions deliberately or negligently compromise the welfare of children, we may first move them to our amber list. The persistent nature of YouTube's manipulation of information against the interests of children, based on official policies that mandate such misinformation, I might add, means you move directly to the red list. If you think we've made a mistake, you can appeal and we'll take another look. Keep reading for more details. Science, like truth, is not fixed or certain. That would make it dogma. Both are processes that move us forward, often falteringly, towards greater enlightenment. Both are predicated on the free exchange of information and ideas. Let's take a topical example of how YouTube inhibits this process. YouTube states it does not allow content that spreads medical misinformation that contradicts local health authorities or the World Health Organization medical information about COVID-19. This policy is overtly against the process of scientific discovery and the pursuit of truth, while protecting official dogma set by those in power. It's a policy borrowed really from the Dark Ages. Nothing could be more damaging to the pursuit of truth than assigning it to those in power. All actions involve a judgment of risk and benefit based on the availability and reliability of information. But by restricting the information available to people and mischaracterizing the remaining information as more certain than it is, YouTube is directly compromising the ability of medical professionals to perform professional judgments, and for ordinary people to offer informed consent. So in so doing, it's directly risking lives. In fact, I was surprised to find your policy on the topic of COVID-19 is so prescriptive that your list of so-called misinformation is rife with internal contradictions, disproven conjecture, and servile deference to badly aging policies. So you might want to look at that. You might observe, for instance, that several items YouTube labels as misinformation, such as claims that COVID-19 vaccines are not effective in preventing the spread of COVID-19, have become widely and officially not acknowledged, if not necessarily advertised, by many local health authorities. So this stipulation would therefore appear to be in contravention of your own policies. Such are the entanglements of positioning oneself as an arbiter of truth. How your actions endanger children. The catalogue of YouTube's actions that directly compromise the welfare of children would take years to unravel and should be the subject of an internationally coordinated legal investigation. Just this week, you removed a parliamentary address from Christopher Chope, who was doing nothing more than referencing UK government data on vaccine injuries. There is no way to be comprehensive here, so I'll just share a few personal examples just from the month of March at the Children's Union to illustrate the absurdity of your position and the damage to lives that your worthless policies are inflicting. Gagging a respected paediatrician. Dr. Ros Jones is a retired paediatrician. She devoted her whole career to helping sick and vulnerable children. She's now devoting most of her retirement to helping children and keeping them safe by holding authorities to account with regards to COVID policies that may harm them. In a podcast with the Children's Union last summer, 2021, Dr. Jones gave a balanced, expert and evidence-based analysis of the potential impact to children of various COVID policies in the UK, including lockdowns, mask wearing and vaccination. She drew few hard and fast conclusions at that time. Rather, it was a masterclass in how a reasoned and well-intentioned person with expertise from a lifetime of professional and vocational endeavour in a relevant domain attempts to make sense of the world so that others can reflect on it, perhaps challenge it, and move us further along the path of progress. In the time that's passed, data has demonstrated that her concerns have proved highly valid. She was calling out precisely the right thing. And yet this month, YouTube suddenly decided to ban the video podcast. Don't worry, you can still watch it on Odyssey, by the way, and I'll leave a link to that below. Here's another example, censoring world leading scientists. This was at the end of February, actually. On February 23rd, the Children's Union held a press conference in London on behalf of the Children's COVID Vaccine Advisory Council. At the session, world-leading experts presented testimony and the latest international evidence regarding the risk-benefit of COVID vaccines for children. Members of the council who gave presentations included the aforementioned Dr. Ros Jones, but also Professor Angus Douglas, a world-leading expert on vaccine development and immunotherapy, Dr. David Livermore, the former director of Public Health England's Antimicrobial Resistance Monitoring and Reference Laboratory, and Dr. Claire Clegg, a consultant pathologist, and Dr. Liz Evans, a retired doctor and expert in medical ethics. The press conference also included testimony from a vaccine-injured young man. We made the film of the press conference available to anyone that attended, and within days for posting the video, several of our supporters were issued with a warning from YouTube, and at least one was issued with a 30-day ban. The censorship process is very sanitized. Your censors, they're probably thousands of miles away, and they're referring to policies, and they send out these automated boilerplate warnings. But when you strip away the technology, what you're actually doing is no different to putting your hand over the mouth of medical experts, people who spent their whole lives and careers trying to save lives. You're gagging them just when they're raising the alarm on behalf of children's safety. If you think that's okay, consider this. It's a thought experiment. You're at Davos. You're being interviewed on a panel alongside some doctors or a professor, someone that's a real expert in the topic at hand. But for whatever reason, you don't like what they're saying. Perhaps it's not, the official line. And so here's my question. Do you put your hand over their mouth to stop them from speaking? Is that what you would do? Because it kind of is what you're doing, just from the comfort of your office, you see. By stripping away the technology, it's easier to see that. I choose to believe that, you're good people. You just wanted to do the right thing. But you're making a serious intellectual error. And so I want to point out a number of ways in which, I think what you think is that the risk of allowing misinformation to persist is too great. So here's a couple of reasons why you're wrong. Firstly, as YouTube has so kind of risibly demonstrated, even an internet colossus is entirely incapable of determining even an internally coherent truth. Its overt deference to authority is surely proof that it simply does not know. You don't have a monopoly on the truth. Secondly, in this complex, ever-changing world of ours, the truth about anything that matters is not fixed or certain, and by pretending it is, YouTube strangles our best mechanism for dealing with an uncertain future, namely experimentation with new ideas and solutions. A perfect example is your proscription of any discussion of any remedy for COVID other than a tiny number of state-sanctioned novel pharmaceuticals. Thirdly, as you have amply demonstrated, people and organisations can be very stupid, but as a species we are nevertheless successful, so long as we are allowed to think, act and exchange ideas freely. That's because in a complex world, solutions to big problems do not emerge from bureaucracies, but from the trial and error of an entire species. Most strategies will fail, but a successful strategy will replicate rapidly. For this reason, we are much less vulnerable to misinformation than to controlled information. Ivermectin is a perfect example of this, by the way. How many lives have been needlessly lost because of your continued censorship of this remedy? One that was discovered by doctors who were on the front lines saving lives. Fourthly, by presenting things as more certain than they are and censoring alternative views, YouTube and Google have become the largest source of misinformation on the planet, which is ironic. For those in power, misinformation is dangerous because it can erode trust, and a trusting populace is much easier to control. But the unquestioning trust and deference to authority that you promote has a destabilizing effect because it negates individual judgment, discernment, and ethical decision-making. Total trust is a condition indistinguishable from blind faith, and anyone that wants people to be like that wants slaves. I think one of the mistakes that Silicon Valley people make is that because technology is so scalable and it's the source of their wealth, they think morality is scalable. But it's not. You have to do the right thing on every occasion. That's how morality works. Sorry, that's not in the letter. I'm just riffing now. Let me get back to it. I'm almost done. What to do next? We want to help YouTube, as your parent company famously put it, to do no evil, and perhaps one day rehabilitate as a responsible corporate citizen. This will require, among other things, a far-reaching cultural change, a thorough disentanglement from commercial conflicts of interest, and a full account of your past misconduct. Such things take time, but there are remedies you can make without delay. Review and revise all your policies on the basis that your organisation has no reliable mechanism for distinguishing fact from fiction, and that even if it did, doing so would do more harm than good. Reinstate all footage removed on the basis of your foolish presumption of knowledge. Advise all existing YouTube users to migrate to a rival platform. We use Odyssey, by the way, and I'll post this there as well, until you have your own house in order. Tender your resignations. You must not be trusted in a position of power again, but by leaving now, there is a chance your organisations may survive the damage inflicted by these foolish policies. Once you're able to confirm all 4 actions are in place, we will consider YouTube's potential rehabilitation on our traffic light system of child safety. Thanks for listening. The letter's in the post.